So, one of the very common kinds of conversations that I have on the subreddit or like in my direct messages is someone who is dealing with a person that they know isn't treating them right, is cheating on them, and like maybe like rude or kind of mean to them, but this person hasn't hit them, so they're not clocking it as abuse. Or it might not be in the kind of what we think of as the traditional abuse dynamic, with a male perpetrator and a female victim. So if you're like queer or you're a man in a relationship with a woman who is temperamental or whatever the thing is, and there's something wrong and you're trying to fix it, and it doesn't dawn on you that it's abuse until for some reason you've come across some piece of information or someone said a thing to you, and now you're having to reevaluate like your entire relationship. Is this abuse? And one of the things that I really want to highlight is that when you're in a relationship dynamic with someone who sucks, they didn't suck at the beginning, or you wouldn't have continued into a relationship with them. You wouldn't have opened yourself to be emotionally attached to them so that you're now to the point where they're treating you badly, but you're having a hard time leaving because you're emotionally attached to them. That's why we have boundaries, so that we don't get emotionally attached to people that are unhealthy, unsafe, and abusive. Um, and so, the kind of like if you're coming in and you're in this like fog of like confusion, look at where they're stealing your ability to choose. It's something that every abuser does. It's something that every unsafe person will end up doing at some point. But they decide to do something at your expense for their own benefit, and they steal your ability to make a choice about it. And you, as a person who gets to make decisions for yourself because you're a human being with full autonomy, this is for adults, by the way. But you're a human being with full autonomy. You get to make decisions for yourself, and yet they withhold information so that they will lead you into making a decision you wouldn't have otherwise made. Or they will misrepresent reality so that you think something is a certain way when it isn't. And then you discover it, and you might have one of those kind of like real slick people who's like, well, I didn't technically lie, you just assumed, or whatever. They did purposefully steal your ability to make an informed decision, right? Like, think about it. We laugh at these really long user agreements that you get whenever you like download like some software, you get a computer or whatever it is. And you're just like, oh my gosh, and you're scrolling through it. Or, when you sign a contract or whatever it is. But the idea behind them is that you get to make a fully informed decision before you enter into this contract, this relationship, this user agreement, that someone doesn't get to do something at you, that you have to give some kind of permission for it, and that you need to be fully informed in order to do it. And so people who want what they want and will just manipulate the situation or your understanding of it so that you will let them do whatever it is they want, or you have no idea about it, that's a selfish person. That's how these people give themselves away. They are selfish. They are self-focused. So you might have like a selfish person in like the traditional sense that we understand it, and then you might have a self-focused person who's, more your like pathological anxiety kind of, like they're so self-focused, and they're not like intending to be selfish, but the effect is essentially the same. They make themselves the center of everything. So you can have it like selfish or self-focused, but the end result is that you are so focused on this other person instead of yourself. You're focused on what they want, need. That's sarcastic quotes on the need. So focused on what they think that they quote unquote need. Really just their wants, and they're just incredibly selfish, and they're happy to use other people to get what they want. I forget who the quote. It's Terry Pratchett, and I'm gonna mangle it a little bit. But Terry Pratchett essentially wrote, in one of his books that evil, the beginning of evil is when you start to treat people like things. And that's, you're in this relationship dynamic and you're confused because they're treating you like a thing. And yet they're holding you to like this standard of what it means to be a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, or this is what friends do, So they're gonna hold you to the role that they've, that you've agreed to. But like you wouldn't have agreed to that role if you'd known everything. And it's not, you get to you are not that role. You get to not be in that role anymore if you don't want to be. No one gets to beat you over the head with that. The only person who I really think is able to have like a leg to stand on there is like a child with their parent, right? That is, you are the parent, that is your role. But for everybody, like we're adults. No, we choose to enter into dynamics and we get to choose to leave them. Hopefully that continues moving forward in our legal system. Anyway, so you're going to be looking for selfishness. You're going to be looking for emotional manipulation. And usually the Out of the Fog website lists that as fear, obligation, and guilt. It's not like they're not just expressing their feelings if they're trying to get you to change your behavior to do what they want. That's controlling. So if you have feelings and you say, oh, I have these feelings, and I really just wanted to express them, let's talk about it. Totally fair, normal thing to do. But when it's, this makes me feel whatever it is, and therefore you should do completely different thing, and it's not reasonable stuff, because abusers love to switch it up on you. So if you're saying, hey, it makes me feel really insecure when you are flirting with other people at a bar, that's normal. And it is reasonable to say, and therefore, I would really appreciate it if you did not do that. Because again, we're in a relationship dynamic where these are normal expectations. So, abusers will tell you you're being controlling when you're really just like asking for normal stuff. Something to be aware of. But if you're ever in that position where you're starting to get spun up and what is normal here, and is this an abusive situation and whatever, just like look at who's being selfish. Look at who's being self-focused. Look who has to be the center of everything. Look who is profiting off of your labor or your time and energy, and usually they're really not appreciative either, because there's a point where that entitlement just leads them to believe that that's something that they're supposed to get, and you failed if you don't give it to them. So when you go back and you look at the beginning of the relationship, and if you'd and you go, if I'd known this is what was going to happen, would I have entered into this relationship? And the answer is no. That's a very big indicator that you are somewhere where it's not good for you to be, and you probably want to reconsider that. And it's going to be hard because you don't think of this person in that way, and you don't want to leave them necessarily. You just want them to stop treating you badly. You just want them to understand and be kind to you and be nice. And you think it's possible because they were like that at the beginning. The thing is, at the beginning, there were no expectations. They didn't have any obligations or responsibility. And they also could have been love bombing you. They also could have just, a lot of people, selfish people in particular, really love the beginning of relationships because they get a lot of unearned intimacy. They get a lot of benefits from someone who doesn't have any expectations of them because you're not in a relationship yet. And so the beginning of the relationship might have been very nice because you were, being so loving and kind and nurturing, and you weren't expecting them to do anything because it's not like your husband. You don't have children, or your spouse or your wife or whatever. So there's no expectations there. So whatever little bit they decide to do is like, oh, wow, this is such a great person. So, the love bombing at the beginning can just absolutely lead you on a rabbit trail in terms of thinking this person is a good person. And that's not what we want to be paying attention to. When they want you and they treat you nice, that is not relevant information. How do they treat people they don't want? How do they treat people they don't want or don't want something from? Do they have an intrinsic orientation of treating people with respect? Do they respect other people's autonomy, other people's decisions? Do they respect other people's no? Because you know they're not respecting your no, at least now. And so when you think back to the beginning, maybe they did respect your no, but like, did they respect other people's no? So there's an abuser will, or shitty person, however we want to call it, they'll always give themselves away at some point. You know, they, on some level, they know, they know, that, you know, or they know at least that you wouldn't like it if they acted how they wanted to act, because then you wouldn't be there. So they know enough to like hide who they are. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. I'll talk to you next time.